Hello and good evening to you. Welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We are live from news at Desawe Kanda. Also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. I am Alfred Ocansey. Tonight, we'll look into the issues as the flag bearership race of the NDC takes shape. And we'll tell you what's happened today with John Mahama and also Kojo Bonsu, and a new entrant whose name just popped up today, all picking their forms today at the party headquarters. We'll give you details of that shortly as a political analyst also joins us. In fact, John Mahama has already been talking about the records game that the NPP says they are going into 2024 with. Stay with us. You'll hear him on Ghana Tonight. Also, we engage constitutional governance and political experts in taking stock of the 30 years of parliamentary democracy in Ghana. We shall hear also from the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford-Bagbin, who has been in Parliament since 1992 and risen through the ranks to be the Speaker of this 8th Parliament, as well as the Majority Leader, Oseiche Mensah Bonsu. Stay with us. Also, tonight, we keep the tabs on what's happening in Nigeria as we build up to our coverage of the general elections in Nigeria slated for February 25. We have a Nigerian politician and CEO of Ovation, Chief Dele Mahmood, joining us on the show on Ghana Tonight. Let's hear from you. We're very interactive on Ghana Tonight. The hashtag is on Ghana Tonight on Facebook and Twitter. Let's get talking. I'm Alfred Ocansey. Let's settle for Ghana Brief. Speaker of Parliament Alban Sumana Kingsford-Bagbin has stressed the need for Ghanaians to focus on getting the right human resource to lead the country or remain underdeveloped. He was speaking at an event where he launched activities to mark 30 years of parliamentary democracy in Ghana.
You can keep on changing your constitutions. You can take whatever concept of governance you want. But if you don't get the right human resource correct, you can never develop your society. I believe in this state, if they send us to Singapore, Singapore will become undeveloped.
The Majority Leader and Member of Parliament for the Swame constituency, Oseiche Mensah Bonsu, is calling for an amendment of the 1992 Constitution to cap the number of ministers a president can appoint. He was speaking during the 30 years of parliamentary democracy in Ghana event.
We need a new constitutional order that will put a cap in the number of ministers of state. A new order that will ensure that the Speaker of Parliament is a serving member of Parliament and that the Parliament of Ghana does not remain as one of only 9 parliaments in the world whose speakers are not members of Parliament.
Ernest Kweku Kobia, a name unheard of in the NDC, has picked up the 30,000 cedis nomination form. With all indication, he intends to go the full haul and challenge John Dramani Mahama, who has already picked up a form to contest the NDC flag bearer race. The first-timer is optimistic of victory.
If you know me, you don't know me, got nothing to do with me, and it's not stopping me to deliver what I want to deliver for my nation. You just wait and see. The little man will bring changes to the nation.
The ruling New Patriotic Party says it is unfazed about the former President John Mahama's decision to contest 2024 presidential elections. Director of Communications of the NPP, Richard Ahiagba, said the NDC has nothing new to offer Ghanaians if the former president is allowed to seek re-election.
It was an economic situation, he couldn't manage it. If he's coming, we want to interrogate. That was why we're emphasizing for you that hold everybody to the fact. What is his proposition? What is he bringing? We want to know. You force that conversation to happen. So far, I don't see that.
The Chief Executive Officer of the National Petroleum Authority, Mustafa Hamid, says the second consignment under the government's Gold for Oil program will be sold only to oil marketing companies with not less than 45 retailing outlets. This, he says, is to ensure that the Gold for Oil program achieves a better impact on consumers.
There are 150 oil marketing companies. If you are selling soppy to all the 150 companies, you will not realize the impact. But if you are selling to the people with the highest number of outlets, then its effect will be felt across the country in terms of the price reduction.
The central bank, by their law, can buy and sell gold. And so in carrying out this function, the central bank is also independent of the government. So what is happening under the Gold for Oil money is for the central bank to continue its role of supporting the international transactions of the country through their reserves. And they can keep reserves in dollars, they can keep reserves in gold, they can even buy more gold than what they need as reserves in order to support the international transactions of the country. And this is exactly what the central bank is doing in this case. As to who they sell the gold to, I'm sure that is what we are referring to as broker. They sell gold to so many people already. And as I speak to you, under the Gold for Oil program, there is one of the companies that has agreed to supply oil to Bost, which is taking gold directly, not through a broker.
In this second consignment of Gold for Oil products that have come, we are going to sell only to OMCs with not less than 45 outlets. You see, because if you are, our local people call something soppy. There are 150 oil marketing companies. If you are selling soppy to all the 150 companies, you will not realize the impact. But if you are selling to the people with the highest number of outlets, then its effect will be felt across the country in terms of the price reduction.
The NPA boss, Dr. Mustafa Hamid. But you see, the ultimate objective of this decision to use our gold to buy finished products is for it to impact on the prices of petrol and diesel at the pumps, so that when you drive to the pumps, there's a direct reflection of this program, and you can feel it, you can attest to it, and you are benefiting from it as a consumer. Has there been any real data to show the specific impact of this program on the consuming public after this program was started? Already we've had 2 consignments of finished products. I'm talking about petrol, diesel coming into the country under this Gold for Oil deal, which in one instance, money was used to purchase 40,000 tons of finished products, which is less than 10% of what we consume. If we have a disaggregated data so we can point to specifics of the impact, in the end, remember, it is our money that is being used. It is our gold that's been used to run this program. And that's why some level of transparency is important. See, the recent reduction of prices of petroleum products in the second pricing window of February, we saw, this is what happened, right? And this has nothing to do, from what we understand. Take a look at this. Petrol went down from 15.25 to 14 cedis 50 pesos. Currently, when you go some of the pumps, this is what you see. Diesel also, in some cases, selling around the same 14.50, but others also, the average is about 14 cedis 90 pesos up. That was down from the 15 cedis 70 pesos. And this is the current prices. This was more as a result of the stability of the cedi, right? And a stable crude oil price on the world market. At least that's what we observed, and most of the experts talked to us. this recent reduction that we experienced. This is how the picture looked like when it comes to the various factors at play that impact on the prices of petroleum products at the pumps. We have the currency, crude oil prices on the world market, and then the levies and margins on the diesel and petrol that we buy. The cedi has been largely stable over the period, right? And that's one of the major determinants of crude oil prices on the world. That's the prices of petroleum products at the pumps that we go and buy. Crude oil is selling at just a little over $80 per barrel if you check on Bloomberg. And in terms of the taxes, there's been no major change, apart from what we experienced in the last quarter of 2022, where UPPF went up to 47 pesos from 36 pesos, about 11 pesos increase. And then we also saw the bust margin going up by some 2 pesos. So there was not really anything significant in terms of the change in the taxes, crude oil prices, and the cedi. In fact, experts are saying to us that for us as consumers to feel the real impact of this Gold for Oil program, government will have to control some 40 to 50% of the market with this program. So far, the consignment, understand, is just about 10% of the total demand. While we are at it, the Tamale refinery, TOR, we understand has not refined crude oil over 20 months now. It's there. This is a refinery that was built as far back as 1960. Some many years before, 50 years, in fact, before we discovered crude oil in commercial quantity in this country and started producing crude oil in commercial quantity in 2010. We got to know that the first consignment that came in, we paid cash. And then eventually the explanation that government gave that this Gold for Oil program, where it consists of both cash and gold to buy finished products. So as we are spending money to buy finished products, petrol, diesel, LPG into the country, what is the plan to turn around the fortunes of the Tema Oil refinery? I mean, think about it. A state refinery run down, and that attempt to get some strategic partners, we don't even know the updates as yet. So while we create the room for private sector to also build private refineries, take a look at TOR, right there. Huge infrastructure. This is the state of the state-owned refinery. 63 years ago, we built this. 50 clear years before we started commercial production of crude oil. So, Mr. President, what is the plan for TOR while you do this Gold for Oil program so that we can refine our own crude oil as well in this country? That's basic economics. At least we can benefit from refining our own crude and how that would impact on prices at the pumps. Look at that. That's the evidence that you see. So that's the question that leadership in this country would have to answer. Stay with me. The NDC's flag bearership race is taking shape. The NPP has already started giving pointers of how they intend to tackle John Mahama, who picked up his forms today with records. Records. John Mahama has also been speaking about records. Stay with me. There's more coming up after this.
Franco Trading Enterprise is your leading mobile phone, accessories, and your electronic retail outlet. You can buy any item online at the comfort of your home from Franco Trading Enterprise. Just download the Franco Trading app on Google Play Store or App Store, or visit our website at www.francotrading.com. You can buy all brands of mobile phones, television, air conditioning, home theaters, and any other accessories. For online purchasing and more inquiries, just call us on 0501 502 670. Franco Trading Enterprise, we are still the home of quality mobile phones and accessories.
You are a major stakeholder in nation building. Your voice matters. Start your day with us.
We simplify the conversations, break down the jargons and technicalities. We keep you well informed throughout the week. Start your day with us.
Knowledge is power. We put you in the know of the happenings in Ghana and the world over. The main reason why you need to start your day with us.
We give the leaders the mandate to govern our affairs. We have a responsibility to hold them to account. It begins here. Start your day with us. Good morning, Ghana, Africa, and the rest of the wonderful world. Welcome to Sunrise on 3FM 92.7.
Start your day well informed. Start with us on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. Catch the all-new Sunrise Morning Show with me, Johnny Hughes, Helen Apiampofo, William Asiedu,
and Noble Crosbyan.
Weekdays from 5:55 a.m. to 10 a.m. only on 3FM 92.7. Your urban lifestyle radio.
Well, welcome back to Ghana Tonight. Now, the NDC's flag bearership race is already taking shape. Day one of the picking of forms, as was announced by the General Secretary of the party, Fifi Kwete, just about last night, has actually saw a lot of activity. But even before we get to the party headquarters and take a look at what happened earlier today, the new patriotic party has already been given pointers. In fact, talking about John Mahama, who picked his forms today. And they've given indications of what they're going into the 2024 debate with. This is Richard Jahiagba, he's Director of Communications of the party. Take a look.
We're not afraid of Mahama. In fact, he is afraid because he can't tell whether he's going to run or not. And I was telling you, a couple of days ago, he was asked if he was going to run. He said, you don't know, you never know what would happen. I mean, if you want to contest, you know you contest. We are ready for him. We are interested at this point in how we can build the economy. What we are interested in is whether or not he has a solution. Because we saw him vanquish gains that he got. We saw him collapse our economy. We saw him collapse our banking sector. We saw him cause Ghanaians to live in absolute difficulty in this country without electricity. It was an economic situation, he couldn't manage it. He's coming, we want to interrogate. That was why we're emphasizing for you that hold everybody to the fact. What is his proposition? What is he bringing? We want to know. You force that conversation to happen. So far, I don't see that. We're allowing the NDC just hide behind the difficulty, which difficulty we have explained to you come about because of the COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war. They are denying that. You are allowing them to get away with it. We want you to hold them accountable because all of us have equal stake in this matter.
So earlier, when I sat with John Mahama, also got into the records and what the NDC is going into 2024 with. And he understands, at least from what I spoke to him, what he believes the Ghanaian people are going to be looking out for in deciding who to vote for in 2024. It's not going to be business as usual. The Ghanaian people have become discerning. Let me take a look at this. There was a concern about how the fight against corruption is going. The Auditor General's report recently put to 17.4 billion, how much we're losing to various forms of infractions, up from 12.2 billion or 12.8 billion in 2020. Now, what could have been contributing to this rise in the loss of revenue to the infractions we are seeing now?
When you send your political apparatchiki to occupy the leadership of state institutions, what do you expect? They've worked for you to become president. And so to compensate him and thank him for what he did, you send him as head of MPA or deputy chief executive of MPA, or you send somebody to Ghana Gihog Distilleries as the MD, or you send your political apparatchiki all over those places. What do you expect?
But what did you do differently?
What did you expect? What do you expect?
Those appointments that you're talking about were also headed by political appointees when you were president.
Most of the institutions and the parastatals, we sourced the people who headed them from within. And so there was an upward mobility. You take a cross-section of the state institutions and see how many people we brought from outside. Very few. Most of those who went to the head of their institutions were people who rose through the ranks to those positions. And so, I mean, they don't follow procurement procedures. All the governance systems we put in place and held people accountable for have been messed up. It's sole sourcing, or they talked about sole sourcing in 2016. There's more sole sourcing today and selective tendering than any other time in the history of this country. And I mean, people run the institutions like their kingdoms. I've told the president, reshuffle your government.
He says that he's not going to do that.
He says because we want to subvert his government.
Yes, he says
you know.
that.
But when people have been in that place for a long time, they consider it their fiefdom. And they believe that they can do whatever they want, and there's nobody who can question them, you know. And so that's the kind of attitude we have.
He says he reviews the performance of the appointees on a daily basis.
And he thinks they are performing well.
That's what
I think the people of Ghana have a different opinion. The people of Ghana definitely have a different opinion. I don't know who's evaluating their performance, but definitely I don't think the people of Ghana agree with that evaluation.
Why must the Ghanaian people trust the NDC as an alternative to all of this?
Yeah, because we've been in government before. They've seen us work before. If you go to most of the communities, everything they have there, from electricity to water to schools, secondary schools and everything, we connected the majority of this country to electricity under the rural electrification program. We built more small-town water systems to give people good drinking water than any other political party in the history of this country. And so our track record is there. We've done all the major work. We built a new port for Ghana today. If we were continuing to use that old port, you know the logjam that we have created on our open sea. Today, any ship that comes in is able to come in a very short while, is discharged, it turns around and it goes. Ghana is one of the most efficient ports in West Africa today. We had that old Terminal 2. You know all the problems we had with it. Today, Terminal 3 is the best in West Africa and is among the top 10 in Africa. I mean, remember Kwame Nkrumah Circle, 80,000 vehicles used to use it every day. We counted. And you could go and sit in Kwame Nkrumah Circle for almost 2 hours before you're able to cross from east to west. Today, when you get to Kwame Nkrumah Circle, you just cross easily. You don't even remember that there was ever a runabout there. So we've done transformational things for this country. Our track record is there. The advantage our opponents have is they're very good in propaganda. And they like to repeat something over and over again so that people accept it as the truth eventually. But we will campaign on our track record. President Akufo-Addo has rolled out 6 years of his track record so far, another 2 years to go. And we will compare and see which of the two governments, you know, acts in the best interest of the Ghanaian people.
You say the next NDC government is going to review ex gratia.
Yes.
To Article 71.
Article 71. When our constitution drafters drafted the constitution, they put in Article 71 to cover constitutional office holders. And so these are charged, the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. And there are several items under Article 71. One is how the president appoints his ministers. It's an entrenched clause that says that the majority of the president's ministers should be appointed from Parliament. But aside from that, there's also the clause that says that the president shall set up a committee to determine the emoluments of the category of office holders itemized in Article 71. Now, that has been a major contention between organized labor and ordinary Ghanaians and, you know, the government. because it is believed that because of the committee that determines the emoluments of Article 71, it has created a disparity between Article 71 holders and the ordinary.
The TUC has indicated they are going to ensure that is
and
addressed.
I think that the time has come for us to look at it. It has operated for some time, and we all can see what some of the difficulties with Article 71 are. And so when President Mills started the constitutional review, one of the issues that was raised was the issue of Article 71. And when they did the consultation, the general public opinion was that there should be a review of that clause. And so we referred it to the Constitutional Implementation Review Committee. Unfortunately, they were not able to make any headway before we left office. And so we had expected that President Akufo-Addo would take it up and continue with it, but he was interested only in the part about political party participation in local level elections. Once he tried that in a referendum and we refused to support it, he withdrew it, and since then he hasn't touched the constitutional review process again.
The Attorney General and Minister of Justice Godfrey Dame says that your recent statements about the judiciary are unwarranted, unjustified, deplorable, and amounts to imprudent action. I'm quoting him.
And I was making a call to action that we should do something to change that perception. Why can that be imprudent? I didn't put the judiciary where it is.
Says haven't occupied
the last
high office.
The last Afro-Barometer. No, so if you occupy a high office of the land, you shouldn't speak the truth. Is that what it means? And recently, the Chief Justice himself, in a statement read for him by Justice Doche, raised some of these same issues himself. And I will applaud him for it, because I had said in my statement that I had lost faith in the current leadership to be able to do anything about reforming it, and I hope that a new Chief Justice will do that. But since then, he's made this statement that Justice Doche did, and I saw some positive jewels in it, that he was calling judges, to dispense justice freely and fairly, transparently, so that people will feel, that confidence to go to the judiciary, because the judiciary is the last arbiter. We can disagree, we can have quarrels in Parliament and everything. Eventually, when we are unable to agree, we all go to the justice system. He can interpret that to mean that I was imprudent and blah, blah, blah. So if you're a former president, you see something going wrong in the country, you have no right to talk about it. Is that what he's saying? No, I won't let him take that right away from me. If I see something going wrong, I'll point it out. It's my duty to do so. I have a voice that is listened to in this country. And I think that if things are going wrong and I talk about it, it makes it topical so that something can be done about it. And that's why I continue to make the statements I make.
In fact, the Afro-Barometer survey by the CDD reflected a number of things that you point to about the citizens' concerns about the judiciary, the perception about the judiciary. But the former Chief Justice holds the view that, look, if you take a bad case to the court, you don't expect a good outcome.
Of course. Okay. Those are the things I'm pointing to. If you take a bad case... You
can't blame the judiciary for that if you take a bad case to them.
Of course. I'm talking about where people take good cases and get bad outcomes. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about bad cases expecting good outcomes. And so I just think that they should go by the oath of office that they take, that they shall dispense justice fairly to all manner of persons. And if they did that, I'm sure that the image of our judiciary will rise in the eyes of the public. So I think that we should all work together, and that's what I said in the statement I did, that we should all work together to ensure that we raise the image of the judiciary from where it is currently.
What's working for the NDC in the Ashanti region, which is the NPP stronghold?
I think that people are frustrated and are getting disappointed with the current administration. They made a lot of lofty promises that they've not been able to fulfill. And the current hardship people are going through is completely averse to what the president promised. You remember when he sat in a station and said, and so if you're in Kumasi or in Ashanti and you're feeling the pangs of hunger today more than you did in 2016, what do you expect? of course you feel disappointed, dejected, and so you look at what the next alternative is. And that alternative is the NDC. And I think that that's why we're seeing the numbers that we're seeing in terms of our registration. I go to Ashanti, and the kind of response that we get, you know, even from Ashanti, which is considered a stronghold of the MPP, you know, shows that there's something changing, you know, in there. And I believe that, like I was saying, in that same conference of our lawyers, was that it can't be business as usual. A next NDC government must do things differently. And I just give a few: reduce the size of government and things like that, have a strong anti-corruption fight, you know, enable the anti-corruption institutions to do their work no matter who is involved, you know. So I gave a few examples of that, because Ghanaians will hold us to a higher standard when we come into office. I don't know if you saw Reverend Duncan Williams' video when he said, I'm sure that he was just talking from common sense, not that it was a prophecy, because even I can sense that it won't be business as usual. Ghanaians are being patient because they see that 2 years is just around the corner. We'll have the opportunity to make a decision. And if they vote, whichever government comes in. And so Ghanaians are being patient for 2 years. You come a new government, you're trying to do the things that Akufo-Addo's administration has done. They are not going to allow you to do that.
Your Excellency, I thank you.
Alfred, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So that's John Mahama giving the pointers of the kind of references to records and what Richard Ahiagba also made reference to. So clearly we know how things are going to play out in the next 20 months, at least, ahead of us. But take a look at this. John Mahama's journey over the period as flag bearer. Now, the first coming was by popular acclamation in 2012. Then second, ahead of the 2016 elections, went unopposed in 2015. Then the third coming, we saw him win all over 95% in 2019. In fact, that's when he came up with the likes of Professor Joshua Alabi. In fact, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagman, also contested in there, and a number of people. So that's the third. Now, this fourth one in there, what we're going to see with the NDC's flag bearer race in 2023 and how things are playing out, we know already some names have come up with some new entrant in there. Until today, we did not know about one, Ernest Krobia. He has also been talking after he picked up his nomination forms today. And then we have Kojo Bonsu, we have the former finance minister, Dr. Kwabena Dufour, and then John Mahama. But you take a listen to this new entrant who showed up today with the surprise and says, you know what, he's the man to actually bring around the fortunes of the NDC going into the 2024 elections. But just take a look at this. This is a highlight of what we've been talking about over the period. Take a look at this and how things are playing out. And this is it. In 2019, a little over almost 214,000 votes you saw there, some 95.23%. Represents us about 213,487 as against Joshua Alabi, who polled just 3,404. Today, he was the one who picked up the forms for and on behalf of John Mahama. Now, Alban Bagman is the Speaker of Parliament, Right Honourable Speaker of Parliament. He was in there, came in third with some 2,301. And then you have Gusitano as well, who came in fourth with a little over 2,000 votes. And then you have Dr. Ekospio Gabra as well in there, who came in, it was about 1,447 votes. And then Sylvester Mensah, former NHI boss, with 934. So you see how things have played out over the period. But then again, look, it does not in any way also give any indication of how things are going to play out. That's what we're going to be finding out from a political science lecturer shortly. Dr. Asah will be joining us shortly. But take a listen to the Ernest Krobia who showed up today. Take a look.
It's not stopping me to deliver what I want to deliver for my nation. You just wait and see. The little man will bring changes to the nation, and then everyone will be safe forever. Can you So
some say this is an attempt for you to establish your presence in the NDC for future maybe positions.
I'm here to stand and build a new Ghana. I'm not here for future. I'm here for now. I'm here for today.
It's just going to be for the NDC delegates to decide. But Dr. Asah is a senior political science lecturer at the University of Ghana, Legon Political Science Department. Thank you so much for joining us on Ghana Tonight. The race for the NDC flag bearership is just fledging up, is it not? I mean, you've seen the people who have popped up. Is this just going to be a straight win for John Mahama as we saw in 2019, Dr. Asah?
Those who want to contest, they have their records. They have excelled in their various fields of endeavors. But I'm afraid the task ahead of them is a daunting one, because you have John Mahama, who has seen it all as an MP, as a minister, as a vice president and a president. Let us remember that politics is a referendum of your work, in addition to a contest of ideas. So what work are they going to stand on to campaign? Obviously, you have to depend on Rawlings' legacy, Mills's legacy, and John Mahama's legacies. And if Mahama is one of the contestants, then I'm afraid none of them can rub shoulders with Mahama. It is obviously, and it is obviously clear that Mahama is, miles away from those who are going to contest with him. There's no doubt about that. Others would definitely put up an appearance and a performance, but I'm afraid they can't, pull some surprise to the extent that they will win the election. That will be an impossible adventure for them.
Well, Dr. Asah, hold on a bit for me, and I think that you're very convinced that this is just going to be a straight win for John Mahama from your own analysis and the crystal ball that you're looking into. But today, Parliament celebrated 30 years of its existence and impact and contribution to the democracy of this country. The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagman, is actually stressing the need for Ghanaians to focus on getting the right human resource to lead the country or remain underdeveloped. I was speaking at that event to mark launching activities to mark the 30 years of parliamentary democracy in Ghana. Just take a look at this. And Dr. Asah, hold on a bit for me.
We must focus on getting the right human resource to lead the country. You can keep on changing your constitutions. You can take whatever concept of governance you want. But if you don't get the right human resource correct, you can never develop your society. I believe in this state, if they send us to Singapore, Singapore will become undeveloped.
That's the speaker there, Dr. Asah. 30 years parliamentary democracy. What will be your assessment of Parliament's work in terms of the duties that they have to perform, exercising their oversight role over the executive, the checks and balances that the Constitution demands of them to do?
Yeah, thank you, Alfred. If you look at how far we have come, we might pat ourselves at the back that we have done a yeoman's work, and that we have been able, in spite of the challenges we have faced, nurture and sustain this democracy. And this is how far we have come. In terms of various indices, let me put it that way, that is used to measure the performance of a democracy, we'll say that yes, we have not fared badly at all. If you look at issue of elections, we have had, apart from 1992, very successive competitive election that create the avenue for a free contest and the end of the day, people accept results and allow those who have won to carry the day. It is true that on that score, we have seen some challenges in terms of electoral, fraud and processes. And that, apart from 1992, we have not seen the magnitude that we saw in 1992. So if all in all, you realize that in terms of election, we've done so well. What is more interesting is that those who have never been happy with the end of results or what has been declared have the opportunity to go to court and not resort to violence. And the court has always distinguished itself as the bastion of the law and then protects the integrity of the election by handing down judgments that has always served as a guide for the conduct of future elections. Apart from that, issue of human rights, if you compare it to the era of military rule, then you realize that we have done a great work, where in the days of the military, there was nothing but gory tales of human rights violations. But if you see what we have done in the Fourth Republic, starting with poor reports about human rights violations and all that, now we've seen tremendous improvement in the Fourth Republic. That is not to say that we have not seen instances of what human rights violation, child trafficking, issue of, snipers of, cases on murder, abduction, and all that. But they are very insignificant, very, very few cases compared to previous years of what disappearances, that is the era of military rule and the rest of them. We have also seen the issue of rule of law, at least upheld to the highest level, even though we have had some aberrations, breaches, and whatnot. But that is to be expected from a democracy which is, fledgling, fragile, and nascent, growing gradually. But the good news is that civil society has been up and doing, and sometimes, more often than not, they've called government to order when they want to cross the line. Democracies thrive on what political parties, and we realize that our parties continue to move from strength to strength in terms of their structure, in terms of their organization, in terms of everything that is used to organize a party.
I see. Dr. Asante, so let me pick your mind on this finally before I let you go. So the speaker is talking about the right human resource to advance the gains that we as a people should get from our democracy, but also is saying that we're supposed to be practicing multi-party democracy. But what we've seen over the last 30 years is more of a duopoly. And we know the outcomes of elections after every 8 years. Find out your thoughts on this and if there's going to be any change anytime soon.
Ghana is naturally a two-party system. What it means is that there are more than two political parties in the state, but only two have resources, strength, and they have the influence to win power and form a government. And the government that is formed is exclusive to the party. What it means is that it can use 8 members to form the government without necessarily looking for other parties to join, what we call the coalition government. But there is a multi-party. What we are saying is that more than 3 political parties exist in the state, but each of the parties have equal strength and equal resources, equal influence to win power. But none of them, if it's able to win power, can form a government on its own. You have to tie its apron string to other parties to form a government, what we call the coalition government.
Right.
So naturally, this country is a two-party state. It is not a multi-party state. It is a two-party. So I am not surprised that we are having NDC MPP. It started off with the CPP and then UP. And then events have turned things around. And today you have NDC MPP, two-party. Ghana has never been a multi-party, and it can never be, because the other parties don't have the strength of the NDC or the MPP to win power. So these two parties win power, and then they alternate power. In other words, they give power to each other anytime there is what? A victory by each of their sides.
Right. Dr. Asante, thank you, as always. Thank you so much for joining us. He's a senior political science lecturer at the University of Ghana, Legon Political Science Department. A professor of political science, Professor Ransford Jampo, is also been talking about it. He says that Ghana's parliament, 30 years on, has failed when it comes to discharging its duties with respect to oversight on the executive. He's called them very interesting marks. Take a look.
Generally, if you ask me to score Parliament and the role that they have played over the last 30 years, I'll give them 3 over 10. The hung Parliament has also been deficient in serving as a countervailing authority to the powers of the executive arm of government. They have this tendency of coming out loudly to whet the appetite of Ghanaians and to say a whole lot of things that we are going to do X, these nominees, we are not going to approve them. And when it gets to the time that really matters, then they will behave contrary to the expectations that they may have created among Ghanaians. They projected the interests of very selfish political parties, over the interest of constituencies. That's the reason why anytime there is going to be an election to determine who must represent a constituency in Parliament, among parliamentarians who have not served the interests of their constituents very well, you would see that other members of Parliament would visit the constituency of this parliamentarian who has not served the interests of his constituents very well, and they will go and plead, they will go and beg that parliamentarian be given a second chance. Party foot soldiers and apparatchiks are given jobs as research officers when they themselves know next to nothing about the rudiments and the canons of research. Unfortunately, that's what many of these MPs do. I'm thinking about a situation where members of Parliament would recruit proper research officers headed by, if you like, a research coordinator who would look at what the data says, summarize it into one pager and give it to the member of Parliament so that the member of Parliament can deliver on. So this can shape the quality of debate on the floor of Parliament.
That's Professor Ransford Jampo, but Professor Bafwa Jimendia is a former United Nations Senior Governance Advisor. He's also been sharing his thoughts about the proposal from the Majority Leader Oseche Mensah-Bonsu to have the capping of ministers also introduced in the Constitution, and then also a review of the powers of Parliament. So Parliament can be empowered more to serve more in terms of the checks on the executive.
Overall, we can be happy with the work of Parliament as being one of the 3 legs of governance that has functioned relatively, in the sense that it's part of the success story of Ghana clocking 30 years without any interruption. So certainly Parliament deserves some kind of commendation for that. Representation has been the weakest link in the work of Parliament, in the sense that we do not observe close interactions between parliamentarians and their constituency. One thing about our democracy is that the parties are very strong. In fact, recently, when a party issued a statement publicly directing its members in Parliament to behave in a certain way, I was disturbed, because Parliament is an independent institution.
Well, that's Professor Bafwa Jimendia, but the Majority Leader and a Member of Parliament for the Swame constituency, the Honorable Oseche Mensah-Bonsu, he's been raising some key issues, including calls for an amendment of the 1992 Constitution to cap the number of ministers that the President appoints. Take a look at this.
We need a constitutional order that will mitigate the winner-takes-all and prevent the do-or-die combat associated with our elections. We need a new constitutional order that will prevent the constant increase in the number of seats in parliament. We need a new constitutional order that will put a cap in the number of ministers of state. A new order that will ensure that the Speaker of Parliament is a serving member of Parliament and that the Parliament of Ghana does not remain as one of only 9 parliaments in the world whose speakers are not members of Parliament.
So, when this statement was made, a reaction by many is that, look, there's been calls for the president to cut down the size of government, reduce the size of ministers, even before this proposal of a constitutional demand to cap ministers comes in. That has not been heeded to as yet, and this is coming from the majority leader. But let's spread our wings and go to Parliament, shall we? And what the issues have played out over the period and how things are going to be after 30 years of practicing this democracy. But on February 25, Nigerians, our neighbors, will go to the polls to elect President Muhammadu Buhari's replacement as he is serving out the second of his constitutionally permitted 2 4-year terms. 18 candidates are jostling to succeed him as leader of Africa's biggest economy. Top contenders that we've seen play out include Bola Tinubu and a former 2-term governor of Lagos and a major stalwart of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC party, as well as the PDP's Atiku Abubakar. He's not new to this, a former vice president who's gunning for the position a record 6 times. 6 times. Yeah. Also in the race, the Labour Party's Peter Obi, a 2-time former governor of the Anambra State, Rabiu Kwankwaso, ex-defense minister and former governor of the Northern Hub of Kano, on the ticket of the new Nigeria People's Party, that is NNPP. NNPP. About 18 of them, all right? Now let's cross over to Nigeria, shall we? And Abdul Latif is a colleague journalist in Nigeria with News Central, joining us live from his base in Nigeria. Abdul, thank you so much for staying up to join us on Ghana Tonight. First of all, how's the political atmosphere shaping up ahead of Saturday?
Yeah, as expected, the political atmosphere is exciting. It's evident that that political players are set for one of the biggest battles in Nigeria's history. Essentially because for the first time in a long while, we are seeing that the election is too close to call. We are having 3 major political stalwarts and a 4th who has made inroads into places where ordinarily we wouldn't have seen so much support before now. We have Peter Obi, who is from the Labour Party, but who is being supported by the country's Labour Union. We have Ahmed Bola Tinubu from the ruling party, who is probably the godfather of Nigerian politics. Then we have Atiku, who has been running for really a long time now, and this is probably the time he'll put in all his arsenals into winning this election. So, by and large, the president has expressed the desire to allow for a free and fair election, and therefore, he has promised credible election. He has given the electoral umpire the freedom to exercise its right and do the needful. He has funded it properly, and so a lot of electorates are hopeful. However, the fact that we have the Naira crunch and fuel prices means that a lot of people are basically more interested in how you'll get by the shortage of Naira in circulation as compared to having to wait for election. And by and large, we hope the election will be free and fair. We hope it will be peaceful and it will be well attended. What you will realize over time, between 1999 and 2019, for example, is that the number of registered voters who are able to vote in the past election cycles has continued to decrease. It spiked a little, and then at some point it decreased. So we had record low in 2019. However, this time around, we're expecting that because you have at least 3 solid contenders and 4th person, we're hoping that there'll be more voters, in terms of percentage,
right,
in the forthcoming elections.
I see. In 2016 and 2020, the topical issues that influenced voter decisions was the economy, security, topmost. Now, ahead of Saturday, what are the major considerations, apart from what you mentioned, the fuel crisis and the Naira crunch, that may influence voter decisions on Saturday?
Yeah, similar issue. The economy, the security, also employment. I mean, that's the general measure, barometers for which most electorates go into the polls. A lot of Nigerians understand that there are global contexts to some of the problems we're having. However, it will still remain the most critical issues: jobs, security, and the economy.
I see. But has there been any development with the Naira crunch? I mean, we've seen long queues at the various commercial banks, even with some of the international banks in there. Has the situation changed from what we saw earlier?
So what we expected was that the Supreme Court was going to rule today. However, it postponed its ruling on the Naira crisis to March 3rd, and that postponement still offers some uncertainty to a lot of Nigerians, and it may impact on the general, performance of electorates. A lot of Nigerians are involved in panic buying at the moment, afraid that they are not sure what will happen during the election. So they are buying, they've stocked up food, and some are just looking to survive the day. And so on election day, you would expect that many of them are more concerned about how they get over the entire election cycle than to go, vote on that day. However, we expect new set of voters, people who are voting for the first time, especially young Nigerians who are excited about, having to be part of the political process that will, define the future of the country. So that is what we have at the moment.
I see. But you've been talking to, and it's good you mentioned the first-time voters. You've been talking to them. What have they been telling you? What could possibly influence their choices on Saturday?
Yeah, a lot of them youngsters, a lot of them first-year students in university are looking to see that they would react to this government in a way that shows their displeasure. Displeasure in the sense that under this government, we've seen the academic staff unions go on strike, and for about 8 months couldn't resume academic activities. That is a major dent, major minus for this government, and a lot of young people will be voting in directions where probably they'll be weighing this more than any other thing for them. I mean, because they will take it as a personal thing, that they would rather a government that would fund education properly and would protect their rights as students and would fund, university done as it should be. Some other ones are worried about the fact that employment is not forthcoming for many of the graduates that are already in the market. Some are concerned about the cost of living. They're worried that things are getting more expensive.
Right.
So essentially, these will form the basis of their choices on Saturday.
We can only wish you all the best. Thank you, Abdul Latif. Grateful as always, staying up to join us on Ghana Tonight. Abdul Latif is a Nigerian journalist with News Central in Nigeria. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now, guess what? We're here at your election command center. We're dispatching a strong team to Nigeria They're going to bring you all the details on the ground. Exclusive interviews, the engagements, gauging the mood before, during, and after the elections here on your Election Command Center across all media general platforms. So stay with us. We're going to start the build-up in the coming days before Saturday for the biggest election on the continent, Africa's most populous country. Well, on that note, I want to say thank you so much for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. On behalf of the rest of the team, I appreciate your company. I am Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.